This is Fam Electric Ghost, excuse me, and this is our continuing series of song deconstructions. We previously were on Spearman, and now we're doing a podcast that's getting a wider distribution, and we're going to prepare to interview some of our previous guests. Um, Rain indicated she'd be willing, Araya, and indicated she'd be willing. The Muted indicated they'd be willing. I believe I'm waiting for Kendra, Erica, and also um, Kendra Black to talk to on this platform. But what we did here, which is really cool on Anchor, is you can actually include Spotify and Apple Music releases. So we included one of our brand new songs, which we have out there um, on Spotify and Apple Music and a lot of other platforms that we just put out. It's a dark ghost track, um, souls that you should never move toward. And this song is very personal to me because sometimes basically what this song is doing is sometimes in life you meet somebody that you really dig, you're really into them, but they they really it's like oil and water or salt on an open wound. I mean, there are some people that when you connect with them, they actually, it doesn't help you. It might not be that person's fault. It probably isn't that person's fault, but it's just like the chemistry between those two people eventually is destructive and it doesn't go anywhere. And that is very painful. And I think you can see that in issues with domestic violence. You can see that when bands break up, like the Beatles, like the relationship between Lennon and McCartney. You can see what happens. They sometimes, you know, the people that you really key in on or really have a connection with, they can hurt you the most, and um, it's just a very painful thing that can happen. So this song is constructed in the typical way that Phantom Electric Ghost, which is my vehicle for my music, is basically what I do is I have a hardware workflow where I use, analog and digital sense to create music outside of a DAW. Like I totally keep my instruments and my hardware outside the DAW. I use Zoom R16s and R24s to record, and any kind of overdubs are all done by tracking them on these digital recorders, which I find with instruments like Moogs and Rolands and drum machines that it's very useful. And I've gotten into Euroracks now, and excuse me, in the Eurorack format, being able to take that analog signal and not get compression by bringing it into a DAW, by bringing it directly to a quarter-inch line onto a digital recorder and recording at 24-bit quality, you can do things where you don't lose the signal. You don't lose the warmth of the analog signal. So I believe that it's very powerful to do that. It might not be as easy, but what I find is, sometimes in music today, people are losing the opportunity or the ability to actually play the song on an instrument. And I think if you can play an instrument like a keyboard or guitar or bass or horn, it is preferable, in my opinion, to play that instrument and record it in a technique similar to what you do in a recording studio by just taking it down, doing multiple takes, really learning the material, feeling the material, and and putting it together that way. Now, in the future, I'm thinking of using an Embassy X um, to do some post production, but post production, not actual production. So I feel that I've been doing this since I was a kid, using Tascam 4 trackers and 8 trackers, and it's just the way I like to record. But I believe if you see the movement with all these analog synths, and you see something like the Zoom live track, there's a reason why things like that are being created, because there is this kind of like experimental nature of using an analog synth is that you don't know what it's going to do, and you kind of let it, the instrument, the ghost in the machine kind of talk to you. You put things down and you capture them, and then you find, oh, that's pretty cool, and you can overdub on something that's very unique, very kind of point in time. And analog instruments are kind of like that anyway. Analog instruments are, excuse me, are basically like living organic things in terms of what they give you. Even if you've got a patch bay and you set it up and you come into it the next day, it's slightly different, or you approach it differently because it sounds different, because you didn't wait for it to warm up, or it's been on for 2 hours and now it sounds different. Like if you've got a Moog Mother 32, or you've got an Arturia, mini boot or micro boot, you understand what I'm saying. When you deal with these systems, and then just the complexity of patching in a Eurorack and the different opportunities you have, excuse me, to actually um, route or override the routing that is inherent in some of these systems. So if you use like a utility module like a make noise math module, and then you use a Morphogene, um, you can do things differently every day. So what I've been doing is taking a Morphogene from Make Noise, which is like a modern tape looping system, similar to what George Martin was doing with the Beatles, and creating all these tape loop splices from my own material, and then you reinventing some of my own material to create new songs. And so what you have with this Dark Ghost song, um, it basically starts with a Morphogene loop of a sample of a song that I wrote called Blue Lights um, Under the Cul-de-sac. And I slowed it down to such a degree that it's not recognizable as that song, but it kind of gives a background of all this sound um, that comes from my own material. And that is the basis of the rhythm and the sonic structure of the song. And then from there, I use a Moog DFAM. And what I love about the DFAM is, yeah, it's not an 808, it's not a 909, it's not a CR78, but it allows you to simplify a beat, um, and then you can play the filters. So if you play all the filters, you play all the ability to modify the oscillators, the two oscillators on the system, bringing them in or not bringing them in, use them in different ways. You can create a drum beat that is consistent but is varied. And then I like to take that and put it down on an R24 Zoom, and then play live over it. So with this song, you basically I'm playing a piano um, chord structure that is purposely discordant because the song talks about discordant, nature of a relationship, uh, and that basically is you know is in the song because I do some off key chords to kind of emphasize this is a discordant relationship. This is something that's like not good. You're just falling apart. Like you're going toward this phantasm that you shouldn't go to. That there's a soul you shouldn't know, but you keep on getting moved toward them, and it's hurting you in some way. It's not making you feel good. And so the music reflects that, and the chord changes, which are kind of off key. And then there's a keytar going on as well as an overdub. But going back to the piano, I find sometimes you probably shouldn't do this, or one of the rules is, oh, you do the vocals separately from the piano. But sometimes when you're trying to write a song, it's kind of like a guy who's playing an acoustic guitar. And Bob Dylan, he's writing songs like "Tangled Up in Blue" and "Idiot Wind." A lot of times, you put down the demo with him playing the acoustic guitar and singing, because that's the best way to kind of capture the vibe of the song, is actually playing the guitar and doing a vocal at the same time. And so for this song, I played the piano and the vocal on the same track to kind of capture the feeling that I wanted. And in some cases I do that, and then I overdub it to make a tighter vocal. But this one, I just like the way it felt, and I just, it's just a choice. I don't always record that way. Sometimes I put something out and make a separate vocal track. But this particular song, I chose to make that decision. And I was talking to um, the band from the Bahamas, Heritage, and they basically, we were having the same kind of discussion. There's all these people who say there's like certain rules and right way and wrong way to do things in music. But when you start to actually do it, you find that you do songs in different ways, and you might break the rules, the so-called rules, just because the song requires it. There are some songs that require you to play it live and then overdub it. There's some songs that require you to do the vocal and a guitar or a piano in the same track. There's some songs that you basically, purposely put something out of tune, or you run something in a filter that's not traditional, or you do backward tape looping, or you do heavy orchestration. You do all kinds of different things to service the song because that's, as a songwriter, you have a feel, you have an intention, and no one can really know your intention other than a really good producer that can kind of feel your vibe. Um, but when you're creating your song as a songwriter or singer songwriter, you are like responsible for that vibe, and you're not dependent on a producer to give you that feel. And you create your art because that's the way you felt. It's like like a painting. And if you talk to a painter, like, why do you do these layers? Why do you do that? Well, with the song, it's the same thing. So to me, I've always been very enamored with singer songwriters because I love to see the full picture of a musical artist, and what their full vision is. Now, it's not, you know, the only type of artist that you can be enamored with. I mean, I love groups like the Beatles and groups like Yes and Emerson, Lake and Palmer, where you basically have multiple groups of people that have a vision. Or the Who. I mean, the Who is a good example. Everybody was such an individual, but Pete Townsend was like driving force behind it. He's the primary singer songwriter of the group. But Keith Moon totally reinterpreted Pete's original demos, and there's nobody that plays like Moon. And then Entwistle, there's nobody who plays bass like that. It's lead bass. So you have a lead bass. You have Moon doing this crazy jazz, rock drumming that's not exactly in time. It never was supposed to be in time. It's not. The whole secret sauce is the fact that Moon is not a typical drummer keeping time. He is soloing all through the whole song, and that gives him the kind of frenetic punk nature. And then Entwistle is basically doing the same thing. He's going off and doing these crazy bass lines, kind of like a jazz player. And then what is actually the real glue is Pete Townsend's chord structures are more or say like a timing more than the drummer or the bass player. And then Daltrey is doing the vocals at a level that Pete can't do. If you can almost every Who song Pete has a demo. Pete's voice is awesome, but Daltrey has a power that Pete can't have, that doesn't have. And so he interprets Pete's songs in a different way. And so when Daltrey takes Peter Townsend's songs, he totally brings them into a totally different space and makes them what you have as the Who. So the Who, is that merging of all those four people. And then Pete Townsend, if you listen to his solo albums like Empty Glass and Psycho Derelict or, All the Best Cowboys of Chinese Nights, it's really good work, but it's not the Who. And there's a reason, because it takes the four individuals in the Who to actually make that sound. Just like the Coltrane Trio, it takes those three individuals to make the Coltrane Trio, or all the individuals in Sun Ra to make Sun Ra. So there's something to be said for collaboration, but there also is something to be said for singer songwriters that do it all, like a Prince. And I have I have worked with multiple people in my career. And the last effort I did was with Paul Control K out of Los Angeles, who's an awesome singer, songwriter, producer. She has a really cool style, and we put it together, the album, electronic album, which is not exactly electronic. It's a merging of lots of things. It's like Sun Ra, it's yes, it's Parliament, it's P Funk, it's a lot of different things. But that album was called To Infinitum. It's still out there. It has art from our friend Chernobyl, or Adam at Chernobyl.com. And the track we were just talking about is on the new Phantom Electric Ghost album, which is going to come out this year, which is called Dark Ghost, the Spider Puppets. And Chernobyl is doing the art exclusively for this project. It's going to have more art than we had for To Infinitum. Though in To Infinitum, we had a lot of videos that had additional art that Adam had done for us. But this album is going to have a 24-page booklet. It's going to have poster. It's going to have a double CD, and it's a accumulation of Phantom Electric Ghost tracks that we had on Bandcamp. They're still out there, and new stuff that we've done this year as we've gained capabilities in our workflow. So some of the things we gained this year were our Euro rack with our D family Mother 32 and the Make Noise Math and Morphogene and an Arteria Mini Brute 2S. We've also gained the ability to have a studio electronics microphone, which is really helping us with our vocals. And we've adjusted Josephine Electric's vocal, my alter ego, my female alter ego that I create with vocoders with a VTO3 module, which is really making her even more feminine than I wanted her to be in the first place. So the effort I do with this band is to take ideas and and bring them out. And Dark Ghost is got a bunch of ideas that are at a micro and macro level. At a macro level, there's kind of darkness in the universe that pulls people into bad decisions or bad behaviors, and at a societal level, and then at the micro level, there's personal relationships that kind of get fractured because of the same kind of energy. And basically, the songs talk about um, discordance, dissonance, um, finding somebody that might be your twin, um, finding somebody that you feel like you're in the same key, but then something goes wrong and then it becomes discordant, and then you can't fit it back together. And so there's a lot of themes like that that are running through the album. And songs like Sonic Twin, and songs like the song we just talked about. So this new format we like because there's actually a full song for that you can listen to, and actually listen to it at a high level. In this particular broadcast, it's a track that we put up on Spotify. It's also on Apple Music, but at this time it wasn't there. It will be there. And we're hoping to get other people to get in on this new format. And we thank all of our listeners to keep on following us. And we're very excited about this process. Thank you.